You're listening to Radio Azad. This is Coffee Connection, and I am so happy because we are starting a brand new segment today. I have Sahiba Ali. She is a licensed professional counselor and also a licensed marriage and family therapist. She has over 10 years of experience, and we are starting a brand new segment on marriage and family counseling, on relationships, and a whole lot more. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, Aisha. How are you feeling?
I am much better. Thank you so much. And I'm very happy to have you in the studio because this is a very, very important issue, an important topic that
Mhm.
or a series of topics that we are going to
I'm very
address.
glad you had me here because I really would love to address this topic. It's very close to my heart.
बिल्कुल और तो आज का जो शो है it is going to be an introduction. It is on building stronger bonds and it's really to educate people all about what is uh, marriage and family counseling all about. Why should people get it? And what we are seeing, what are some of the issues that you are seeing in the community,
Mhm.
which is leading to these very high divorce rates,
Mhm.
especially amongst our kids' generation, right?
Right.
We talked a little bit about that. So, just to introduce you to our audience, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, your background, and what inspired you to become a therapist.
Mhm. So, my name is Sahiba Ali, and as Aisha has so graciously been announcing, and I've been in a marriage and family therapist for around 10 years. Initially, what inspired me to become a therapist was कि मैंने देखा कि there were a lot of people in the community, bilingual people who didn't have therapists available जो उर्दू में बात कर सकें या हिंदी में बात कर सकें, and also that people weren't they didn't find therapists that could understand the culture. So I
Mm.
really felt the need that there was a gap that we needed to fill in that. And there were just, I knew only two other therapists at the time. And then, alhamdulillah, we banded together a Muslim Association for Psychological Services, MAPS, which now we have around 70 members, mashallah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
now we have that resource for the community. So I actually went back to school after my children were grown up. So we used to go to school together and come back and do our homework together
Mhm.
because I felt that there was this gap that was needed in the community and I had a passion for psychology. So I went into this field.
Mhm. You said a very interesting thing, and that is that culturally sensitive therapists nahi the hamari
Ji.
community mein. Why do you feel it's so important that you go to a therapist who understands your culture and background?
So, generally, in general, in counseling programs, all therapists are taught to be culturally sensitive. They are taught to understand different cultures and not identify, just kind of go with what they believe or bring their belief system into it. But the learning curve is so long.
Mm.
So if I go to a therapist and try to tell them my problem, I have to be like, okay, this is happening in my home, but this is okay in our culture. That
Mhm.
is happening, but that happens in our culture. So the therapists themselves are trying really hard to understand and navigate the
Mhm.
mental health aspect along with your cultural education. But by the time you're done, it takes quite a few sessions to explain to them the culture, and
Mm.
then not being able to relate to the therapist as if they understand,
I
and
see.
also the language nuances, the cultural bits that comes in that somebody naturally knows. That
Mm.
makes a huge difference because therapy is a place where you should be able to feel completely relaxed and open and be able to express yourself
Got it.
without any having to educate anyone. So I
Mhm.
felt that was missing, and it makes a lot of difference if it's someone from your own culture.
Right, right, right. Before we delve into the area of marriage, I want our listeners to know about a workshop that
Mhm.
you are doing. And this is going to be on Saturday, July 26th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And if you can tell us a little bit about this workshop.
Okay, so this is a Sacred Start is the name of the workshop because
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important. Marriage in our religion also, it's such an important milestone in our life, and starting it off right is extremely important. I feel like we make the community stronger if we are solid together as a family.
Mm-hmm.
Strong families, strong couple relationships lead on to raising children right, bringing up good citizens, and kind of giving the community strong platforms and giving the community strong leaders in the community. So it's really important. I've been working for 10 years with couples, and I've worked with domestic violence. And what breaks my heart is I see so many issues that are now almost, it feels like it's beyond repair. Nothing's beyond repair, but it has kind of landslid into, there's been a landslide of issues that started with a little pebble.
Mm-hmm.
If that had been handled at the right time, if people had that education of how to communicate, how to react, how to manage conflict, then they wouldn't be in this heartbreaking situation which the whole family suffers from, and eventually it kind of cascades into the community too. So I
Mm-hmm.
felt, how do I do something that's going to prevent this from happening, inshallah, to whatever extent we
Mm-hmm.
can.
Mm-hmm.
So that made me want to come, do this workshop. It's not a 2 hour speech or something at a masjid or something. It's actually an interactive workshop,
Mm-hmm.
and I have drawn from three major theories, and I've kind of curated it specifically to fit the community needs. So I have this whole experience in dealing with couples, so I know exactly, I have my finger on the pulse of what's happening around us
Mm-hmm.
that people are suffering from. So I'm able to customize the workshop to deal with those specific issues.
Mm-hmm.
And inshallah, it's going to be like an 8 hour workshop. There's going to be a 2 hour segment, spiritual segment by Sister Amna Chaudhary.
Mm-hmm.
And in this, we have a customized workshop for youth where they interact with each other. They practice the tools that they can take home
Okay.
and then use them in their marriage so that the problems don't become bigger, and they find better ways of connecting with each other.
And it's all about nipping it in the bud, right? And
Yes.
it's learning how to communicate with
Mhm.
each other, knowing the communication styles, and then learning, like you said, conflict resolution, communication patterns, and so much more.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great to know. And for that, to register, you get a 15-minute free consultation first, and then you can register, and there are only 8 couples in there. Okay. The number is 469-443-6773. 469-443-6773. Now, before we actually get, and this is, by the way, this is open to newly engaged, it is open to engaged couples and newly married couples.
Yes. Yes.
Let's back up a little. The whole
Sure.
process of rishta.
Mm-hmm.
As parents, we put a lot of pressure on our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Bas shadi karo, jaldi shadi karo, and almost sometimes we rush them through this whole process of finding an ideal, quote unquote, ideal mate.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about the selection process, about choosing a spouse. How easy or difficult is it, and how should one navigate this process, keeping in mind, parents and kids,
Mm-hmm.
and what each other's responsibilities are in the whole process?
Right. So I'll begin by saying that, Alhamdulillah, our community is blessed with really committed, dedicated parents who are who are involved in the process. I mean, the fact that they're wanting their children to get settled and get married, they're just wanting them to take the next step. So you have a really good resource in the parents in helping you.
Mhm.
They've known you from before you knew yourself, or before you knew how to hide your feelings or character traits. So they are a really valuable resource when
Mhm.
it comes to finding the right life partner for you. At the same time, what children and parents also need to understand is that every child, when they grow up, there is a level of self differentiation that they have.
Mhm.
They are some parts of them is related to their parents and
Mhm.
their upbringing, but then they're out there as well. They have their own world, and they're learning from their environment. As parents, we hope, it'll be amazing if they learn the best of things from their home environment and from their outside environment. But the fact is that they are self differentiating from their parents and their background, and they are forming into a whole new being.
Exactly. That, I think, is key.
Is key.
We can't live our lives through our kids.
Absolutely. And so when they are looking for a spouse, even though, as a parent, even though I know what my children's personalities are, what will match them, what
Mhm.
will not, I need to also understand how they are different in what they're seeking in a spouse.
Mm.
What kind of a life are they looking for? What kind of a partnership are they looking for? So I think it's extremely important that there is that open dialogue. There is that assimilation of ideas, like thinking about, okay, what is it that you want in a spouse? A lot of times parents kind of tend to look for someone and
Mhm.
maybe not have that discussion, and and as marriageable age children, you need to think about what is the best that you're taking from your environment, your culture, and how do you want to go forward. What is, obviously, we've made our share of mistakes. We may not be perfect parents or perfect families.
Mhm.
Maybe they can improve on that. So, what is it? How do you see your life? How do you see you're raising your children? How do you see yourself 50 years from now? What are your goals as an individual for your married life? And then
Mm.
let those goals define, okay, this is important to me in our marriage relationship. Once that dialogue happens between parent and children, that's when you have a holistic view of what type of spouse you're looking for.
Mm. That's few and far between, I think, between parents and children. I see a lot of push and I see a lot of pushback
Hmm.
that takes place. Also, I think kids need to realize that parents want to see them actually happy, and
Absolutely.
we are actually on their side.
Right, absolutely. And they really do know, they know you. They know what, sometimes parents will be like, ye 4 din ka shauk hai. Then
Hmm.
he's gonna change. Yeah, you are evolving as a human being. You are changing.
Hmm.
And parents may have an idea of that. So do not dismiss that. Do not be like, I know what I'm doing. First of all, I hate the term it's my life. Really, I mean, it's all of our lives get the way our community is, the way we are. If my child isn't good, I can never be good. Like, we're really connected in that way. So your
Hmm.
life affects the lives of everybody in your home as well. So I think, don't be dismissive about the parents' suggestions. But at the same time, parents also need to understand that the values, the systems, the things, that principles that were very important to them may not be that important to their children. Maybe they
Yeah.
have their own set of values that they're developing. As
Yeah.
long as it's not a negative, why not, grow together?
बिल्कुल, and it is a different generation और हमें ये
Right.
चीज़ें realize करनी होती. I think
जी.
I'm gonna have you scoot your chair just a little
Okay,
forward,
sure.
so you're just a little closer to the mic. Okay,
Okay.
perfect. अभी हमने देखा है कि बहुत सारे तरीके होते हैं रिश्ते करने के
Right.
लिए, right? The traditional methods in let's say in our home countries, we were majority culture. There were just so many people around you. You could see, talk to, pick from, and all that. Here in the US, it's a little different.
Right.
We're a minority culture,
Mhm.
and if you want to marry somebody from your own background, faith, or whatever ethnicity, the pool is much less, and you
Right.
have a lot of people, let's say, who may be introduced to somebody in another state.
Mhm.
Maybe they're meeting on apps, and they're trying to navigate to get to know each other through, maybe in a long distance relationship. How would you navigate this process?
So ideally, I personally am very wary of long distance relationships. I would say, if there is ever any chance of, maybe they fly over or have in person meetings
Hmm.
as much as possible, because there's just so much of a personality that doesn't come through on text, and like, people can have completely different persona
Yeah.
on text and chat and phone conversations, and they can be different. So getting to know someone, it's really important to make any effort you can to get to meet them in person, whatever your however is appropriate in your with based on your family value system. But meeting in person is important. But if not, I mean, you do the best you can
Mhm.
in getting to know them. But I think asking the right questions, not being afraid to ask the right questions. And I would advise also parents to not discourage your children from having the important conversations that they
Mhm.
need to have. A
Mhm.
lot of times, what happens is the Arishta will check all the boxes for the parents, and they'll be like, don't ask this, don't say this and mess it up. Like,
Mm.
don't you know don't ask her this, or don't tell him this. Otherwise, don't just mess it up. But the thing is, you want them to be able to share who they really are.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid of having the important conversations, because sooner or later it's not going
Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah.
If
And
it's not a problem now, it's going to be a problem later.
better to have it before marriage than after marriage,
Absolutely.
right?
And so, yeah, that's
So,
important.
so you talked about asking the right questions. Could
Mhm.
you give some examples of what these discussions should be?
So basically, I think just as an umbrella of the important parts, even when you do, take tests like prepare and enrich, if you're doing all those survey questions, couples compatibility kind of a thing, the main issues are around basically figuring out, are they, what's the, on the spectrum, where do they stand in terms of religion, like how religious, not at all religious, very religious. Where do you stand on that? What are your
Mhm.
value system there? Where do you stand on financials? Like, is one a really frugal person? Is one a spendthrift? Like, how do you, so having conversations about that. What
Mhm.
gender roles, what is important to you, what gender roles do you subscribe to?
Mhm.
um, family, extended family interactions with the extended family, like what role do they play, and
Mhm.
what role do you want them to play? What is the outlook for both of you in that?
Mhm.
um, Raising children, I mean, what, whether, how many children do you want, like not necessarily like ask that the first time you talk, but basically, what are your thoughts about parenting? What are
Mm.
your thoughts about how you want to raise your children?
Mhm.
So these are very important questions. Whether you're both going to be working parents, whether you have any reservations about your spouse working or not working, or who puts family first, who puts their job first. Because at certain time, everybody has to, even when a couple's raising children, they have to navigate. One person needs to rush to the PTA meeting from the meeting, their own
Mm.
meeting, but
Right.
who's capable of doing that? Like, what are those roles? So those are primarily important questions that you need to ask.
Absolutely. When you're getting to know somebody in this
Mhm.
situation, what are some red flags that can come up?
Right. Some of the red flags could be, if you find someone that is emotional instability, you've experienced that, they end the call
Mhm.
abruptly, or not comfortable about speaking something else, or get triggered really easily.
Mhm.
Emotional stability, instability is important. Like, um, how they react to certain things that they may not like to talk about.
Mhm.
That's important to notice. Lack of accountability. This doesn't necessarily, because you haven't known them enough to know how accountable they are, but
Mhm.
in conversations when they're talking about things, there could be a random, I have a speeding ticket. Oh, I'm just gonna, find a way to do a defense driving or
Mm.
something and pay it off, or I'll
Mhm.
just argue. That tells you something about the person. They're not willing to take accountability for something. So
Okay.
looking for those kind of things, does this person take accountability? um, Obviously, addiction, substance use, those are the, but that's very difficult to know.
Mm.
It's not going to be something you will find out in a long distance relationship or even in meeting the person. But any signs that you are able to identify, some of those, incompatible core vision.
Mm.
If your core vision about something is very different, then, to me, this is something traditional also. My sister used to say, and my parents would also, how if it comes to, if you're looking for a boy, if you're a girl, I think how they treat their mother says a lot about how they treat their
Sure.
women in general.
Mhm.
Those kind of things, like how connected they are to their family. If this
Mhm.
person's not connected to their family of origin, unless there is some cause for it, real cause for it, then you that could be a red flag.
Mhm.
uh, Dishonest or omission, forgetting to tell you something important that
Mhm.
you catch in the process of communication. Toxic family dynamics. And I really think I trust people who've had long friendships. Like, if someone
Mm.
tells me I have a friend from, fourth grade that I'm still in touch with, that
Mhm.
says something about someone. And if
Right.
someone has no friends, no real friends, no solid relationships, that could be a red flag. But the degree to which this is a red flag is so, it's very
Individual.
individual, and it's very varied across the spectrum.
Hmm. In your interaction with young couples that you've been working with, what are some issues that you have seen?
I think, first of all, primarily if they have not had any prior interactions, right? If they don't know each other well,
Mm-hmm.
then there is likely to be more surprises in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
There could be very opposite gender role definitions, because most of us here, first generation immigrant parents, have raised their children as with the cultural value system of where we come from.
Mm.
Now, their expectation in their married life could be how they have experienced their parents' culture. So that disparity and understanding that that's different, we are different, we have different gender roles, sometimes that comes up as a clash. And
Mm.
especially from the men's side, it could be like, my father never had to do this, like I never did this,
I
and
see.
it's a big shift.
Mm-hmm.
So that shift, that could be a problem in that respect. Gender role dynamics is something that I do see a
Hmm.
lot of. And obviously, this is a big one in our community: extended family, managing
Even here?
expectations. Oh, yes, even here. Oh, that's a big one. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. A lot
Acha.
of the situations. So, I mean, it differs in degree,
Mm-hmm.
but there is also not being on the same page
Mm.
about the expectations and the boundaries can be a big factor.
Mm-hmm.
So those
Right.
are mainly the things that I come across. One thing that is, because of this whole age of Facebook, Instagram, people, young couples also come into a relationship expecting it to be a magical world
Mm.
sometimes. And I
Right.
don't think they're prepared to do the hard work, or they're not prepared for the compromises and the disappointments. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the disappointment that, oh, I was expecting it to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
Marriage is hard work.
Yes. And it's a lot of work,
It is a lot of work. And it
right?
is I mean, going into marriage, knowing that there's going to be a lot of compromises you will make.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of your, you have to expect that. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I see young people get disheartened very quickly
Mm-hmm.
and be like, wait, I can't live with this. I can't deal with this. But that's a different, because of the way it's projected
Right.
on social media. I think that influences people into believing it's going to be a much better than they find it
Hmm.
to be.
Interesting. What in your observation has been that, do you think girls have to compromise more or boys have to compromise more? And this point about adjusting to each other,
Hmm.
seems to be not happening in the way, like, let's say, in our generation it was just, अच्छा लड़कियों को तो adjust करना ही
करना ही
होगा,
होगा.
but we're
Right.
finding that that's not taking place with our kids. What's your take on this whole
You're right
dynamic?
about the part where our generation it was more like the woman who has to compromise. It is different now, and alhamdulillah, I think it's a good thing. I think
Hmm.
it's a good thing that both have to have accountability, both have to take things seriously.
Yeah.
Um, but there is a more of a shift now,
Hmm.
because a lot of what we brought from our cultures was a lot of emotional, financial dependence, social dependence on for a woman,
Hmm.
on her husband, on the society. Log kya kahenge, kya hoga. There were a lot of those factors that made women compromise more in those situations. कि कहाँ जाएंगे, क्या करेंगे, कैसे
Hmm.
घर चलेगा, कैसे बच्चे. Now there's a lot of those dependence is not that. There's more independence
Hmm.
in terms of also knowing, we're raising independent daughters.
Right.
So they can survive on their own. They don't need a husband to survive in that respect.
Hmm.
So that has changed the dynamics. And it's not necessarily, the crux is not on the women, but it also depends. We are not there yet. It's not entirely changed. It
Hmm.
depends on who you're talking to. They're still very conservative. Not conservative, I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean, there's still very traditional type of people, and there's very modern. So it's a wide spectrum. The level of assimilation or self differentiation that you're speaking about in terms of
Hmm.
having different people be accountable, is still across the board very different. It's
Yeah.
not, depends on who you're talking to.
Hmm. The concept of premarital counseling
Ji.
is quite new in our community. And a lot of people are like, what is premarital? They are, in fact, a lot of people confuse it with a prenup, you know.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm like, no, it's completely different. So tell us a little bit, because you engage in premarital counseling. What is it, and why do you think it's so important?
Okay, so first of all, I think what has happened, which is a sad thing, is that like counseling and mental health is a very, very important part of our religion itself. Like,
Mhm.
to be honest, like even if you read books of psychiatry, the right books, you will find that we were the trailblazers in this field. And somehow we lost it, where we look at it as a Western concept. It
Really?
really isn't. Like, we
Okay.
were the pioneers in this. We had the first hospital in Baghdad. The way, and not just the hospital, the way mental health patients or counseling was treated was very humane. Like, even several hundred years later, the West did not do it right for a
Mm.
long time. So we are the pioneers. So counseling or consultation is a very Islamic concept.
Mhm.
And so, in that respect, like what happens in premarital counseling is basically I am teaching them tools of
Mhm.
communication
And this is to engaged
to
couples.
engaged couples and newly married couples,
Okay.
because the thing is, we have different families handle it differently. Like, some
Mhm.
families allow interaction after being engaged, some families are strict about it, that
Mhm.
it's not a halal relationship yet, so you cannot meet each other that much or speak to each other. So I think the dynamics of premarital counseling as it exists in the West applies to newly married couples too, because a lot of our couples don't really know each other that much.
Mhm.
That's why I've expanded it, the same principles to newly married couples as well.
Okay.
So the basic things are like communicating, even communicating a compliment in the right way.
Hmm.
It's so important to get it right, to use the right words, to speak to each other in a manner
Mhm.
that is accepted by the other person.
Mhm.
And then conflict, every marriage is going to have conflicts. Like, there is no conflict free marriages. So managing the conflicts, how do you speak to each other about some disagreements that you have?
Hmm.
How do you set boundaries that, I this is not okay? A lot of the times, a lot of issues I see later in marriage is related to not setting the boundary ahead of time. Basically, when you marry someone, you're teaching them how to treat you.
Absolutely.
And if you don't set certain boundaries, if you're okay with everything in the beginning, because you're just in that space,
Hmm.
then you can't blame the other person. But I'm saying you're not teaching them the right way. You're telling them that it's okay for you to scream at me,
Hmm.
or it's okay for you to
Disrespect.
disrespect each other.
Hmm.
And then later on, you're like, wait, that's not okay.
Mhm.
And that's harder to reverse.
Hmm.
So, how do you define your boundaries? How do you set boundaries? And one of the most important things in premarital counseling is I teach couples to make sure that you express your needs to each other and make sure both of your needs are being met.
Mhm.
Because if one person is sacrificing and their needs are not being met, it's a temporary solution.
Okay.
Every unmet need is becoming resentment. And
Hmm.
sooner or later, that's going to eat up the marriage from inside.
Yeah.
As opposed to that, if your needs are getting met, the other person's needs are getting met, you're building a strong marriage,
Mhm.
inshallah. So those
Yeah.
are the kind of things. And they'll do a lot of interactive, you know, interventions. Like, they'll actually speak to each other about a conflict, and
I
I will
see.
monitor them, help them with those issues, and kind of giving them the tools to be able to speak of about this in their own marriages later.
How long is this premarital counseling? Is it like over several months? Is it a certain number of sessions?
So it can be a certain number of sessions if I'm looking at it from the perspective of, okay, I need to teach them communication skills, conflict resolution, setting expectations. So I have like these 8 topics that I want to speak to them about:
Mhm.
managing extended family. I can do that psychoeducation and interventions in a set number of sessions.
Okay.
Now, during those sessions, if something comes up as an issue for them, if something comes up as a problem for them.
Mm.
Then we might need more time to work through that
Mhm.
together.
Okay.
So that part becomes an unpredictable thing, in the sense it depends on individual couples. If they feel like someone would call me later and say, this thing we talked about, I think she struggles with that, I think she's
Mm.
not doing this right, can we talk more about this in
Mhm.
session?
Mhm.
So then that way, in that sense, it could be more sessions, but
Mhm.
it's very individual.
And how soon before the marriage or the wedding do you recommend a premarital counseling?
I think as soon as, I would say there needs to be some counseling before you select a spouse, like, kind of figuring yourself out as well.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea to even go to individual therapy, or even parents and child going to therapy and trying to figure out if there is a conflict on
Mhm.
what you're looking for. But as soon as you're engaged to be married, as soon as you know this is the person you're going to get married to,
Hmm.
you should be, kind of preparing for the most important decision of your life.
Yeah. And I think statistics say that couples who have gone for premarital counseling have a 30% higher success rate, right, in
Yeah,
terms of their
alhamdulillah. Yeah,
marriages.
yeah. There's a lot. I would even say more, because these statistics are hard to find, but
Mm.
more because you are having discussions about conflicts in a safe environment, in the proper manner of speaking, and there's going to be more resolutions. You're learning how to make compromises. You're learning how to make sure both of your needs are met. So more. I think it could be really
Okay.
good.
What would you say to couples who say, we are in love, we don't need therapy?
uh, Love and limerence. I wish we could all just live on love. Yeah, it's a good thing if you're in love. You want to do everything you can to preserve that
Mm-hmm.
love. That's what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
You're in love today, you want to make it last. And the way you make it last is taking, if there's something beautiful you have, you want to protect it, right?
Yeah.
So it's more of a heartbreak when two people who are so in love just don't do it right. And it hurts more because there's just so much disappointment that this was someone I was completely in love with. I made these sacrifices for this person. So if you're in love and it's going great, awesome. Just get this insurance policy. Make sure you maintain that love.
Yeah, because then you flip the switch and then they just hate each other
Right.
and try and bring each other down.
Could happen, yeah.
Right.
Learning to
Okay.
manage that.
Let's talk a little bit about your workshop, Sacred Start.
Mhm.
Okay. What makes it so different?
What makes it different is that I have, first of all, my 10 years of experience of working with couples. I have seen them at different stages
Mm-hmm.
in this community,
Okay.
and I've seen the different struggles that they have dealt with at different stages.
Hmm.
That gives me an insight into something, a problem in the beginning. I can see it across the lifespan where
Mm.
that little problem can go. And so I'm applying, not only am I just, a lot of workshops would use this particular theory or this particular Gottman style and this style and that style. They'll use standard interventions, but what I do is I'm able to identify from three major theories what are the interventions that I could customize for the couples that I'm working with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not using the interventions exactly as they are. I have developed some interventions of my own based on what I have seen in the couples that have come into therapy. So that one part is different. Other than that, also I am able to relate to it to the religious aspect also.
Mm-hmm.
In this workshop, I won't do too much of that because I have Sister Amna Chaudhary who's going to do all of that in 2 hours. So I will
Okay.
focus on the mental health part. So primarily, because I'm drawing from three different theories,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm drawing from 10 years of my experience as a couples therapist and 7 years with DV. I've seen emotional abuse, I've seen physical abuse. Alhamdulillah, I had the opportunity to work with Texas Muslim Women's Foundation. A big shout out to Sister Hind and Mona
Mm-hmm.
because they're doing amazing work.
Amazing work.
Amazing
Yeah.
work, like so important. And so I've seen the other side of it.
Mm.
And watching that, it's not possible for you to see that and be like, what could have prevented this? What could
Mm.
have been done earlier, not by the survivor, but in general, whether it's in the process of identifying your spouse, whether it's in the process of setting boundaries with in-law abuse, what could have been done. And having had that hat, I think with that experience, I'm able to kind of customize this workshop more for the community here.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And are there any specific tools and techniques that couples will walk away from? And then I have another question for you,
Okay.
which is in working with your couples, have you ever said, no, you two are not for each other?
Nahi, nahi. No, no, no. That's definitely not something in any situation. That is not even. So just a little interesting fact about things like that. Like in therapy, unless and any time in all of the sessions that we talk about here, I
Mhm.
want this to be a disclaimer. I'm never speaking about abusive marriages.
Okay.
I'm never speaking about physical, emotional. If you're in that relationship, I'm not talking about that. There's a whole different code of conduct, if different steps you need to take in that.
Mhm.
What I'm speaking about is good enough marriages
Okay.
where people are fine, there's no abuse, there's
Mhm.
nothing very negative happening.
Mhm.
So when we talk about those relationships, if it's not a problem for you, it's not a problem.
Mm.
Meaning there's a lot of times couples resist coming to couples therapy or are not wanting to do this because they are like, you know, maybe what we have as a couple is not very ideal, or it's not very feministic, or it's not very traditional, but it works for us.
Mhm.
If it works for you, then
It's
you
not a
don't
problem.
have to, it's not a problem at all. You don't need to. So, no, I mean, if a couple thinks that they're perfectly fine, I would try to help them work on red flags I see.
Mhm.
I've come across a husband that's extremely patient, and he's like okay with anything that happens. And then I know that this is not going to last for the next 20 years.
Mm.
Sooner or later, he's going to build resentment, and this marriage is going to fall apart.
Mhm.
So I would try to identify and say, how about you express this need of yours? How
Mhm.
about we balance things out? So I will try to help them with that, but it's never my decision.
Okay. What kind of responses have you gotten from couples who've attended your workshop?
Alhamdulillah, I have a Instagram handle, Calm Hearts of Texas, and with their
Mhm.
permission, and of course with all anonymity, I am putting their responses on there. They have
Mhm.
said that it really helped them look at things in a way that they had never looked at it before. They never thought of it in that manner,
Mhm.
and they were able to practice those particular techniques in handling situations. So it gave them a lot of insight, and I'll keep posting those responses. But I will say that it's also important to what you take home, you need to implement that. You need to practice those techniques
Mhm.
as well.
Okay.
You will learn, you will be given a fishing pole, but if you don't go fishing,
Yeah.
then so there is some responsibility on continually. And the one very important thing that happens for couples that come to me for premarital counseling is
Mhm.
they have me as a resource. I've
Okay.
known them from before they got married.
Mhm.
So anytime I'd get this call from a couple, we're running into this issue about this
Mm.
particular thing. And they'd come back in for a couple of sessions, and we'd be like, okay, what's going on here?
Okay.
So that is a very healthy relationship that you have with counseling and with
Mhm.
your therapist, where you can just pick up the phone and be like, I want to come in. We are going through a rough patch. And I really value that, because there are going to be rough patches. You
Mhm.
might need someone to help you through it. So I
Right.
think that's a very valuable thing for them to have a safe space to
Oh,
process.
absolutely. और जितना हम इसके बारे में कहें, it's less, because just like we have a doctor, we actually all need a therapist
Mhm.
who puts things in perspective for
Yes.
us, and it's extremely, extremely important. So, if people want to contact you and they want to register for this workshop, or they have any questions, we'll give out your number, which is
Mhm.
469 443 6773. That's 469 443 6773. And people can call, they can do a 15-minute free consultation
Mhm.
with you,
Mhm.
and then register for the workshop, which is going to be on Saturday, July 26th in Plano, 10 बजे से लेके 6 बजे तक. You have a website, SaibaAliTherapy.com, where it's spelled Saihba, Saiba Ali, Ali, therapy.com. And her Insta handle is at Calme or Calm.
Calming, like it's fine, it's calm.
Okay. And you said it's a French
It's
word.
a French word. It's calmy, but and it means more than calm. It encompasses lot more feelings in it.
Oh,
So I just wanted to be.
okay. So Kami Hearts of Texas is the Insta handle. And you can reach out to Seba, and you can please pass this information on to somebody who may be in your family who may be getting married, or you are getting married, or a newly married couple, and I think they can really benefit from something like this. We need to normalize these kinds of interventions and interactions, actually, so that people can start off on their relationships on the right foot.
Absolutely. And I think, one important thing is that a lot of times parents, conservative parents, don't encourage meeting together. This is like a chaperoned event
Mm-hmm.
where the couple gets to talk about issues with themselves in a group environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it adds a lot more of that nuance to it. And I think, if I had a friend who was getting married, I'd do like a gift of a premarital workshop.
What a
That's like the
great idea.
most best possible gift you could give someone, that a gift that keeps giving, literally.
Wow.
So that could be like, I think I want to see, whether with me or anyone else, I want to see premarital workshops in the bridal registry all the time.
What a great idea. You have friends getting together and throwing dholkis. So, this is something that will help the couple.
Absolutely, I
Oh,
think it's
I love it.
precious.
Guys, what a great idea this is. All right, her number again, 469-443-6773 is that number. Seba, I really want to thank you, first of all, for coming on board with us, providing this great information to help the community. I think sometimes I feel that our youth really struggle in a lot of areas thanks to stuff that we as the older generation have created for them. And I think this is a service that I think everybody can navigate very and needs. Now, how about older couples
Mhm.
who may need therapy as well? Do you provide that?
Yes, I do couples therapy
Mhm.
for older couples as well, at all stages of life. And inshallah, I will also be doing workshops for couples at different stages of life. I plan to do that. I wanted to begin at the beginning. And I do want to say, Aisha, that, I am very blessed. I feel so blessed and so grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to all the couples that trust me and honor me with what they share with me, because it is so rewarding to see, like, there's nothing more rewarding
Mhm.
than to see a couple or a family, struggle, get over their struggles. If
Mhm.
I'm able to help them, alhamdulillah, if Allah uses me for that, then it's such a warm feeling, because then I get to see the whole family, the children together. I mean, I can't explain how rewarding it is. Anything could be happening in my life, but if I'm able to help a couple get over their issues,
Mhm.
I feel like Allah's blessed me. It's just such a blessing and such a ni'mah that I could see that happening.
I can see the
Alhamdulillah.
passion on your face and how much you love what you do, and I think that in itself is a blessing
Yes, alhamdulillah.
for that. So look forward to our segments here on Radio Azad on Coffee Connection, and again, this is through this kind of therapy, you actually, you're not breaking up marriages, you are building up marriages. And I think this is something that is very important to understand. Seba, thank you so much for being with us
Thank you
today.
for having me.
And we will be back next month with another